Alright, so when I was a kid, I was super into video games. I loved to play them, loved to be on the computer all the time, and I was figuring out how to make batch files on our DOS systems so I could play like TIE Fighter and all these great games, and it was super fun. I was playing Doom with my friend Greg on the modem, and my parents got super frustrated because for about a week straight at night I was playing with them, and they kept picking up the phone and kept hearing the crackle of the modem line. And they said finally, like, that's it. We're taking away the keyboard. You don't get to play anymore. And that really... Now, fast forward years later, I decided to go into computer science due to my love of video games. And I graduate, I ended up getting a job as a systems administrator. I noticed all of my counterparts I graduated with ended up going on to have really great jobs in the web world in particular, in the startup world. And here I was working at a university, not getting paid like they were, and just feeling like I was really left behind. And I noticed I started wanting to blame my parents for all of this, that they didn't foster my interest in computers as a kid. And I was really upset about this. I kept imagining that if they had just facilitated me learning more about programming, I would have been light years ahead of anyone else. That's not what happened. And this followed me through for years until I was about 27. I remember that was the first time I really went to a therapist, and the one thing the guy offered me that just stands out in memory all the time is he said, maybe your parents were doing the best that they could. And I railed against this, and I thought, how is that possible? How could they not see and recognize who I was and what I was here to give, what I was doing and how much it interested me? It was just so upsetting. But I'm extremely grateful for this man because he really introduced me first to the idea that I need to take fully taking responsibility for my own life. And it really shook the foundations of who I was. And here he was, I'm paying this man for help, and he's telling me that I need to let go of all my hurt and all of my pain that my parents gave me and really find compassion for they did the best they could. Today we're going to talk about the path to freedom. It's really about the path of freedom in your own emotional and spiritual and psychological states, where you're not being confined by these old ways of being the victim of the world happens to me, but really starting to be empowered in I decide what happens in the world. And the first really important part of this is to really start identifying when you're in the victim state. And everyone goes through this. There's not a single human being that hasn't been in the space where, oh my gosh, if my significant other would just show up and listen better, we wouldn't have all these problems that we have. Or maybe if I had more opportunities at work, I'd be able to do the work that I want to do. Or even some more basic ones of like, the world is out to get me, this person needs to treat me better, there's no space for me to express myself. And all these things are victim type language, right? And they're not so subtle when you're able to be aware of them. But when you're first in it and don't realize that's what's at play, it's almost everywhere in your day-to-day experience. You think someone or something is out to get you. And then you really got to move into that idea of taking responsibility for yourself that my therapist introduced me to, that your life is a product of your choices, 100%. Even from being a kid, even though you really don't get a lot of choice as a kid because you have parents that can just pick you up and move you if you're not doing what they ask. But we still have choice, always and forever. Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, his entire thesis of the book is that no matter what people do to you, now this is a guy who survived the Nazi internment camps and watched people dying around him every day. But he learned that no matter how someone tries to treat you, you always have a choice to how you respond. When we start to do this, we really have to notice how we're protecting ourselves. Now, over the years of growing up, we've learned all of these really great skills, or ego-based skills, about how to fit in, how to belong, how to be safe in our family of origin. The simplest examples of this are get really good grades so I'm loved, or smoke the cigarette so I belong to the social group, or be really good at sports so all the people think I'm amazing. Right? These are very basic things that happen to a lot of people as we're growing up. And over the years, those belief systems about what love means, what acceptance means, how I belong, they end up driving every decision that we make. And we're actually trapped by these belief systems and these decision structures that we have within us. And when you first recognize this, it can be incredibly despairing, because you see how you yourself and your own belief systems have prevented you from doing the things you want to do in the world. And this is where the forgiveness piece comes in too, is that once you start to identify the protectors, and you really got to do this to see how they respond versus which is against what you really want to do. And at this point in our lives, once we've survived long enough to be on our own, to have our own place to live, to have our own transportation, those old ways of being in the world don't necessarily serve us anymore. We really want to let these old things go, but we're so practiced at them, they're automatic. They're built into our reactions. We don't even have to think about them anymore. We just say what's going on. And that's where forgiveness comes in, is we need to forgive everyone else that have hurt us over time, or all the situations where we didn't think we were treated properly. We really do truly need to forgive. And then we also need to forgive ourselves for having made the choices that brought us to those moments, or having made choices that weren't for the greatest good of me or for the other person. And to forgive yourself for having hurt other people, including yourself, in all that you've done. And what ends up happening is your awareness grows around when your parts are engaged and want to respond and react to the old ways that you are. And you want to do something new. You're in this in-between state where you don't really have anything new to go to, any new sets of skills or practices, but you're not really wanting to use the old ones. So you're in this space of the in-between. And this is where a lot of experimentation has to come. It's where a lot of messiness comes out, where you're going to express yourself. You're going to say things that are going to upset others. You're going to be angry while you're trying to be true and express who you really are. It's going to be messy. It's just how it is. You're not going to be able to get around that. And even forgive yourself even then, right? When you're messy, and say, well, I probably could have done that better. And then maybe you go apologize to the person you might have been interacting with, or you apologize to yourself for not choosing the way that you wanted to in the moment. That's just what happens, is you end up in this in-between state. And so you're in this in-between state where the old ways don't work, you don't really have a new way, and you keep trying the old ways and try to rehash them, they keep not working. And that's where you really start to open yourself up to the possibility of something better. You start to open yourself up to, there is a new way that I don't understand yet, I don't see yet, but there's gotta be another way, because there are happy people in the world, and I don't experience that. So there's gotta be a way, and how do they do it? But their how is not going to be the same as your how. It's not going to be the same. The truth is that there is a way, but we all must discover that path for ourselves. So you start to open yourself up to something better. You start to be available and open to ways you never would have imagined, that start to arrive in your life, and you start to notice how things line up where they never quite did before. And then you begin to experience freedom. That actually it's not dependent on anyone else. It's about you coming into yourself, taking responsibility for yourself, really identifying your old protectors, no longer engaging them, and opening yourself up to something new. And that is the path to freedom.